President Trump says he's raising his global tariffs from 10 to 15% after the Supreme Court determined that most of them are illegal. The president wrote on social media Saturday that he'll, quote, determine and issue the new and legally permissible tariffs over the coming months. U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer confirmed the president will not waver on his trade policy.
We want them to understand that these deals are going to be good deals. We expect to stand by them. We expect our partners to stand by them. And I haven't heard anyone yet come to me and say the deal's off. They want to see how this plays out. I'm in active conversation with them on it.
And CBS News correspondent Natalie Brand is at the White House with more on this. Natalie, good morning. After the Supreme Court ruled against him, how is the president justifying raising tariffs?
Good morning, Michael. Well, the president, in announcing that he was raising these new tariffs to 15%, said that it was based on a, quote, thorough, detailed, and complete review. And he announced these new tariffs under Section 122 of the 1974 Trade Act, which allows the president to impose these duties of up to 15%. But there is a time limit of 150 days. So U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer was asked on Face the Nation what happens after that period of time, around 5 months. And he indicated that there would be investigations conducted in the meantime that would then potentially allow the U.S. to impose tariffs under a different authority. But, Michael, as you can imagine, a lot of countries waking up to a new level and layer of uncertainty around these tariffs and what exactly they'll be facing.
And Natalie, I want to ask, the executive arm of the European Union says they won't accept a tariff increase after Friday's decision. How's the White House responding to that?
Well, we're waiting for a new response from the White House after kind of the back and forth over the weekend. But we do know that EU lawmakers are holding an emergency meeting. And the commission also issued a statement following the Supreme Court decision, basically saying that it wants full clarity on the steps the U.S. intends to take, adding the current situation is, quote, not conducive to delivering fair and mutually beneficial transatlantic trade. The statement also notes a deal is a deal and that the EU expects the U.S. to honor its commitments, referencing the trade deal that was agreed to last year, which also set tariffs, important to note, at 15%. But there were a number of carve-outs. Now, Ambassador Greer also asked about all of these deals, said he's been speaking to his counterparts at the EU and beyond, and that he expects the deals previously negotiated to stand, but that there are also active conversations. Again, there's just a lot of confusion this morning as countries try to navigate what's next in the days and weeks ahead.
All right, Natalie Brand at the White House. Thank you. And CBS News political director Fin Gómez joins us now with more analysis on this. Fin, thanks so much for being with us. I want to ask about this. President Trump was particularly critical of the conservative justices over the tariff decision. I want to play what he said on Friday.
I'm ashamed of certain members of the court. They're just being fools and lapdogs for the rhinos and the radical left Democrats, and not that this should have anything at all to do with it. They're very unpatriotic and disloyal to our Constitution.
Now, the judicial branch and the executive branch, they're supposed to be separate branches of the federal government. What does the president's reaction say about his regard for the separation of powers?
No, he's received a lot of criticism from both Democrats and Supreme Court experts on those comments because specifically what you asked about that, that separation of church and state, if you will, when it comes to these type of rulings. I think it also indicates that the president is furious. One person close to the White House who has spoken to the president tells me that he is, quote, pissed over the ruling that defanged a cornerstone of his America First economic policy and his main negotiating weapon on trade with other countries. Granted, he immediately added that blanket 15% tariff order following the news from the Supreme Court. But as mentioned, U.S. Trade Rep Jamieson Greer told Margaret Brennan on Face the Nation that the administration now has less flexibility than before the Supreme Court's ruling, but the administration is abiding by the ruling. So no matter how angry he is at the court, Michael, including 2 of his nominees that voted against him on tariffs, the administration is abiding by the court's decision. But yes, he is still trying to find ways around Congress and around the ruling to continue to impose tariffs.
And Finn, this ruling is being framed as a massive loss for the president. And a lot of Americans don't like these tariffs. The CBS News poll from December shows that 63% oppose the tariffs. Could this decision then be sort of a blessing in disguise for Republicans and for the president, give them an exit ramp here ahead of the midterms?
Great question, Michael. You really know your politics. Yes, I spoke to high-ranking Republicans close to the White House's political operation who say that this might be a gift for their midterm chances. Tariffs have widely been unpopular with many midterm voters, as evidenced by our poll that you just showed. And with the president and party already facing historical headwinds and slipping poll numbers, it could give them a boost. But now someone has to tell the president that, because he has been doubling down on this pro-tariff message. His advisors want him to focus on that one big, beautiful act Republicans passed last year and the tax refunds and rebates within that massive legislation. They say that is their major selling point this cycle.
All right, Finn Gómez, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.